My then 5-year-old daughter came into my office with a picture she had colored that she was so proud of, and I was too tired to smile, and that's when I was like, "I'm not okay. I didn't do anything wrong. I did too much right."
Within 14 months, Erika lost her $1 million company, her mum, and her body. So Erika did what normal people would do and enrolled herself to Harvard to see what made that tick. Why do we run ourselves into the ground? And what Erika discovered was something that I see all the time in small business marketing. It just breaks it, the consistency, but it's not what you would think it is. So stay tuned and welcome Erika Coleman.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Take me back to the version of you, Erika, who ran 2 high schools at the same time, started a $1 million company, and had an award-winning garden as a relaxing hobby. What were you thinking?
See, I love to achieve things. Like, I love my drive, and that hasn't changed. But in a lot of ways, I used to think life was kind of like a math problem that as long as you gave your best and then maybe a little bit more and give everything that you've got, stuff just works out. So
Mhm.
my brain, it was always like, well, here's a puzzle, figure it out. And then it's enjoyable to figure it out. And you're gonna get rewards for it, and that worked
Mhm.
really well for a long time, and yeah, I went to 2 different high schools. I thought that was fantastic and fun. I got to do the programs at this high school I liked and the programs at this high school that I liked, and ta-da, I got what I wanted. And when I was in undergrad, it went really well. I was valedictorian of my undergrad department, and then I started my own business, and it was all the stuff tended to align, but I didn't ever notice that, like, my love for the drive of doing things also came with a cost. Like, it also came with the cost of anytime I got to the end of a big deadline, I got sick. Like, as soon as I checked the box, my body would just be like, "Ugh." I'd spend, like, every vacation with a cold. Just kinda like, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." My weight would balloon back and forth. You could always tell how stressed I was by if the dishes were done regularly or if the house just was piling up, right? But to me, I didn't care because I was going after the things I loved, and they gave me meaning and purpose. And so
Mm.
I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was doing everything well. I was doing all the best practices, all the good things, right?
You went grey at 19 and your
I
body
did
would
go
push
great at
after work
19.
deadlines. Your friends would be
Yeah.
calling to say, "I'm still alive. Can we meet?" Your body
Sure,
was telling
someday.
you. Why couldn't you hear it?
I didn't want to slow down. I didn't. I think probably one of my biggest fears was boredom, quite frankly, right? I was just like, well, if I'm not doing stuff, that sounds awful. I enjoy doing stuff. And so I would let it pile on. And then I didn't ever know how, once it started to pile on, how to sort through it or prioritize it or say no, because I loved all of it. To
Mm.
me, it was like you only don't do things if they're bad or not enjoyable. Well, I loved doing all the things I loved doing. Exactly, I was like, "You can't tell me not to do that, I wanna keep doing it." So I had to learn, like, with my journey with burnout, it was really hard to be able to say, "You know what? I am really proud of how I cared for my mom through our cancer journey.
Yeah, walk
Really
me
proud
through
of
that.
it."
So there was this 40-month period. You're trying to save your
Mhm.
company,
Mhm.
care for your mum at the same time.
Yep. So my company was
What were you?
virtual training support.
Mhm.
So 2022 comes in, and 2020, 2021, huge years for me. I grew more than 500% in those 2 years, like, really fun, exciting years for me because I already knew how to do what now everyone was forced to do, which was be online. And that was exciting, but 2022, the world is starting to open back up. People are finally meeting in person again. So I was like, "Okay, no matter what, demand for my business is gonna go down." So I did what I usually do. We're just gonna pivot. Is another puzzle to solve, right? I call in the experts. We throw more money into trade show marketing and all these other kind of things that we hadn't done before. And I started with this excitement, but it was literally the week before our first trade show that I got a phone call that my mom was in the hospital. And we found out it was terminal brain cancer, and she had at most 18 months left to live. And I had to go, okay, what do we do with this? And like everything, I always try to be realistic. Like, what can you do with this? And so we said, let's not waste any minute that we have with mom. And so we were coordinating schedules and making sure that it wasn't just like doing tasks, but doing tasks really, really well. So we're not just going to the doctor's appointment. We're also going to the doctor's appointment and writing notes and cards to give to the receptionist and the gift baskets and the all these things that actually brought us a lot of joy and meaning and purpose, but we did so much of it because we
Mhm.
were just trying to prove that it was going to be okay for us, do everything right, and then maybe we'll be all right at the end, right? Like try to figure out grief while living it. What's the best practice for grief while going through it? And so I was stuck with this placement of I did everything right. And yet at the end of it, it took 14 months for my mom. She passed away. And then 2 months later, I closed my business. And it was the first time in my life that I've checked off every to do on my to do list because I'm a dreamer. So the to do lists are huge and not usually ever actually possible. And I sat down and I couldn't get back up. Literally, like, and to me, I was like,
What
no,
did it look like? What did it feel like that moment?
I was
Do you know?
angry because I was like, no, I can always find more energy. I can pull it from my toes. It's got to be somewhere. And it just wasn't there. And I was still doing that whole like, I'm fine. It's going to be fine. We're going to be fine. But then my then 5-year-old daughter came into my office with a picture she had colored that she was so proud of. And I was too tired to smile. And that's when I was like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And I don't know why I'm not okay. Because didn't even feel sad. I was just numb. Exhaustion was the only thing I could feel at all. And
Mm.
so that's when I was like, what did I do wrong? I was still mad
Most
about
people
that.
most people would go to the beach, and then you went to Harvard. What?
Yeah, I did 2 months with my therapist, and then because, of course, I'm now recovering overachiever, but then I was still full-blown overachiever, and I was like, "You can't go backwards. I've owned my own business. I was at the top of my game. What do you do next? I can't go back and sit in a cube. What am I gonna do?" And so
Mhm.
that's when I was like, "I'll go to Harvard. That sounds good. Let's pick the school with the biggest credentials I could think of and figure out what comes next." I was always good at school. That's what I thought. I was good at school.
Let's do organizational psychology, huh?
Mhm. Yeah, the first
Okay.
semester was rough. It was rough, but what was cool is that I did use it as an opportunity to say, "Okay, I obviously am well acquainted with stress, but I don't get it. I don't
Yes.
understand stress." And so I went in and said, "Let's make this a chance to really understand stress."
So you had said that your maths was wrong. Once you
Mhm.
understood the science of stress and high performers, what did you discover that you'd been thinking about it incorrectly?
Yeah. The biggest discovery for me happened in the last week in my class that was called Stress Coping and Resilience. We went through 12 or 13 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is why we made it so long, like how I survived for so long. I obviously was really good at resilience. I was really good at meaning and purpose. I was really good at pulling all these things in that we teach each other how to like handle being stressed out. And in our last class, we were studying the dark side of coping, and we read an article by Adam Grant and Blake Schwartz, and it said that you can have too much of a good thing. They took virtues from Aristotle, the very best virtues you can think of: courage, hope, optimism. And they said, what happens if you overdo that virtue? They
Interesting.
found out every single one of them, at best, gives you diminishing returns for the amount of effort you put in. At
Mhm.
worst, a lot of them become harmful to you. So that's when I realized, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I did too much right,
Mm.
and that
That's
caused
that's
me to
really
burn
interesting,
out.
isn't it? Too much of a good thing of courage and resilience and optimism, huh?
Mm.
Very interesting.
That was the one that was like, "Oh, I got it."
So high performing athletes and people in business, small business owners, we have good intentions. We want to provide for our families. We might not want to build an empire, but we have to keep things ticking over. And sometimes it can be quite stressful, but we might think that that's our edge. What would you say to people who think it's their edge?
My favorite way to think of stress is to treat it like endurance athletes treat training. So, not just sprinters. I'm talking about like our marathoners, our cyclists that do the huge long races. Like, how do they actually approach getting ready for their big races? Because what they do is they have different levels of training, which is different levels of stress. And we have those as well. We have like the annoying, obnoxious stressors in our life, like getting stuck in traffic, or I have 16 emails I'm supposed to answer, annoying, obnoxious things. They're not huge, but they do affect you. They call it ego depletion theory, where it's you can have enough of those in one day. And no matter how resilient you are, at the end of that day, you're going to be tired and you're probably going to respond poorly, period. They just stack up. But we don't tend to give them that much attention because soon as that obnoxious moment is over, we forget about it and we move on. So I love to teach people, for instance, that your daily hassles are like when an endurance athlete is doing a lighter workout on purpose so they can work on their form. So I started going, okay, yeah, that's obnoxious, but it's a chance for me to work on my form if I use it right. And form exercises for stress are things like meditation, mindfulness, breathing, little things like that that we can say, look, this was annoying. I'm going to bring it out into the open. We call that notice and name it. Bring it out and then say, I'm a little bit stronger now because I've hit with that and I've applied some form of form technique to this. So that way, when the bigger, really stressful day comes along, I've actually already built up skills within my body and my mind that are ready to jump into action for those big important moments. If I try mindfulness the first time on a really stressful day, it's not going to be very helpful. It's just not. I'm not skilled enough for it to actually make an impact, right? So when
You'll be
we're like,
telling
don't wait
mindfulness to
for
get
race day to
the.
start training.
What about people who probably don't realize it, but see it as a bit of a badge of honor for their ego that they're good at putting out fires in their business and they're the ones who do that and they're the only ones who can do that like that?
Hi, I'm Erica, former version of that. Hi. It's hard because it's fun sometimes, right? When you're like, yeah, I earned that. That was fantastic. I like to talk about often how sometimes I'm my own worst enemy when I'm trying to be the hero.
Mm.
And it's true because in that hero moment, I am driven by good, righteous desires, usually, right? I want to save you. I want to help you. I want to make sure the company doesn't go under. I have all these high stakes. But in that moment, because I'm so like a competitive state, I'm not actually looking at what really is the best deal for this situation. So there's some research from the world of negotiation that I use to help bring my brain back to where I want it to be. And it's called competitive arousal, is the research. There was a bunch of Harvard Business School professors that said, we've noticed that when these really smart, really brilliant business people go into some negotiations, sometimes they will spend more money on that deal than it's anywhere near worth. So, like, way overpay for it. But these are smart people. Like, why is that happening? And to me, when I first read that, I was like, well, that's overextension. I recognize that. There's plenty of times where you get to the end of a project, like, why did I push so hard? Right? What got me there? And so they did some research. They did like case studies and a few experiments, and they found out if four factors are present in that moment when you're trying to make the deal, you're up to twice as likely to pay more than it's worth, to overextend on it. And we build in at least three of these factors if we're small business owners, if we're high performers. Easy, no matter what, because they help us stay motivated and accountable. But the fourth one is the one I'll bring up the most because that's the one that gets us most trouble and we can actually control. So the first three are ones that you'd recognize. A spotlight, if somebody's watching me, a client needs something, I want to perform well for the client. The next one is they call it a time pressure, so a deadline. Well, yeah, we all know that if it's due in 2 hours, you better believe I am just cranking it out as fast as I can, right? And then there's the time investment. So the more I care about something or I've spent time on it, the less likely I am to walk away from it, even if
Mm.
walking away is the best decision, right?
Sunk cost, yes.
That's yeah, it's built in, right? It's built into our lives. But where we get in trouble is with factor four. And factor four is the presence of a single rival. Now, in negotiation, this makes sense because, like, if you're bidding against just one other, like eight other people first, and you're bidding against them, then the price goes high. You kind of go, ah, too rich for my blood. Let someone else take it. But if you're bidding against just one other person and the price goes up, the researchers found like your objective in that moment changes. And it changes from I want to get a good deal to I want to win. And all I have to do win is beat that guy, right? So obviously, all I have to do is beat one person. And so when I'm in workshops with high performers, I'm always like, please note, you can be your own rival. We usually are. And that's what I'm talking about. When you bring up that moment, you're like, oh, I love taking out the fires. I think I'm being the hero. I'm being my own rival. I am paying more for that experience than it's worth. And
Well
it's hard
said.
to do because right, I need it to get done. I need it to get done well. How am I going to get it done well? So
Mm.
I always start with that first test of am I being my own rival here? Or am I actually like championing myself and the cause? Because those aren't exclusive. I don't have to pay for my business's success while beating myself to the floor.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the enemy here.
Massive. Massive. They're really good components to keep in mind. What I notice when small business owners come to me for marketing, obviously that is my sphere, is that their stress causes a lack of consistency. They'll do bursts of it and then go hide on the couch for a month and then come back. And so nobody knows where they are, what's going on. And obviously that's where I can build systems in to support them. But what would you say to business owners who are running on bursts of ability to put out the fires and do all the things, and then they go and crash for a week or, as you said, get sick every holiday? But even more,
Yeah.
some people just can't function even in their business for periods, and then they
Yeah.
come back like a warrior ready to go, you know? But that up and down, that lack of consistency really hurts their business in the long run. How would you speak to
Yeah.
that?
One of my very favorite phrases and ones that I hang on to when things feel tough is that I always choose consistency over intensity. And there's a couple of things that I use also to kind of check in with myself to say, all right, what hat am I wearing right now? And is it really going to serve me best long term? So, long term serving me, I call even achieving. So, I want to even out my ability to do my best today without sacrificing my ability to do my best tomorrow. So, what does that actually look like today instead of just being directed by the work? What does my best look like today that also sustains my best tomorrow? And I teach a framework where I say, okay, that means I got to champion myself and my causes. How do I do that? I have to have three core behaviors that I'm using regularly. First one is I have to cheer for myself and others. Morale matters, right? Even on the crappy days, I have to be willing to say, okay, I did something well today. If I only want to cheer at the high points, then I've got a gap and I can go, okay, how can I also cheer something small tomorrow? And I look for the smaller cheer points. Then I also have to be willing to provide skills and resources when I need it. Grit is not the skill that you need in that scenario. What
That's
you
a good
need
point.
is consistency, right? So if I go, okay, if I need to be able to show up like this 5 times this week, what are the skills and resources that help me get it done? And that's when I look at the right kind of tools and I bring it in, and don't just rely on yourself because your energy changes every single day. So how can you bring in extra things to help support that? So it's not just about you. And then last but not least, you have to call out the bad behavior. And you have to be willing to call it out for yourself and for others, right? If I don't, I get very different characters. It's fun to play with. Like, for instance, what you were describing is probably something I would call like dreamer mode, where I'm like, I have all the ideas and everything that I want to do. And I get this huge burst originally and I jump into it because it's exciting and my motivation's high. But because I haven't built in the skill, like the systems you're talking about, then it fizzles out really fast and it gets stuck. I call it get stuck in the clouds. I don't want my dream to get stuck in the clouds. The biggest dreams are built on small actions. So, how do I build in those small, consistent actions that I'm happy to cheer for and call myself out if I've overdone them? Because I want consistency. So, if I'm looking at consistency as my actual goal instead of let me hit this because it feels good right now, that's a very different strategy. Actually was just talking to my daughter. She's 7, and she loves to do projects. She loves projects, and she's always like, "Mom, I have this idea for a project. Mom, I have this other idea for a project. Mom, I wanna do
Not
this right
beginning
now.
to think
Mom,
where
can I
she
have
gets
ice
that
cream?"
from.
Right? No, I know, right? I'm like, "I understand it, and I can't keep my projects and your projects in line." And we finally have come up with a phrase. You don't have to move at the pace of your ideas. Right, and with her, we've now actually practicing a pause between I had the idea and when I start the idea, because just because it sounds exciting right now and I know I can do it and I want to do it is not enough to actually decide if I should do it right now. So we
So
let
you're
it
telling me
sit
that if I'm
for
on
a
X
day.
and I see a great idea and I send it to my AI agent and I say, quick, build this out, I'm rushing a little hard.
Just a little bit. But if you were to say, "Okay, this idea, I'm gonna let it marinate for a minute in my brain, and then tomorrow you can't stop thinking about it." Yeah, send it, because then you'll send it to your AI agent and you'll actually be able to push back on your AI agent when it doesn't give you quite what you want, because 'cause
That's
you've been
exactly
able to sit with it and you can now actually be more critical with it and get the better product. Because that's what I
nice.
want. I want excellence. I don't want volume. I want excellence.
Yes,
So
yes. I've been keeping in my mind not to mistake intelligence for wisdom lately, and it's well there. So you,
Yes, yes, yes.
when you finished your Harvard masters, compared to how you would deal with a deadline 10 years earlier, I believe is very different. Walk me through what that looked like.
Yeah. My last semester, I had two of my hardest classes. Like I saved the ones I didn't really want to take for last, just in case, you know. So I had an HR management class that was fairly intensive because HR is lots of memorization and it's not necessarily fun memorization. Like you're memorizing compliance law kind of stuff. You're like, yep, great, executive perks and OSHA. Here we go, right? We're gonna figure out how to and I believe in, like, the case behind it, but no matter what, that's never gonna be fun. And I had a negotiations class that I took because someone recommended it to me, and I already knew, like, I was like, "I don't feel good at this. I'm gonna go into something where I genuinely don't know if I'm gonna perform well," which scares me because usually I'm like, "Nope, I pick the things I know I'm good at, stick with my strengths." And because I paced myself differently, instead of saying, I'm going to let the deadlines rule how hard I push. And because with burnout, I had learned I can't actually live that way anymore. My body did not let me anymore. It forced me to say, you've got to pace this out differently. There's a couple things I did differently. I did studying more consistently on a regular basis instead of cramming at the end. And I actually did study groups for the first time in my life and enjoyed it. Now, as an
Mhm.
overachiever, I'm that person who usually hated study groups because I always was like, no, you just want to copy me. Like, you're not going to pull your own weight. Like, that's what I saw study groups as. But I learned how to vet and find other champions who also would do those three behaviors I talked about, that they would cheer when we did something well, that they came prepared with skills and resources to add to the group, and that we would call each other out if we weren't doing well. If someone wasn't pulling their weight, we were going to call it out. And it was the first time I'd felt that kind of synergy and teamwork in an academic setting. And
Mhm.
suddenly every class felt easier and better. And the way we prepared, I finished my finals all early instead of the last day, the last hour, like I usually would, right? Because you get that feeling of excitement. I won. Instead, I said, I'm just going to do it because I'm ready, which felt
Mm.
new to feel completely confident. Like I could take it right now. I'm ready. Okay, let's go take it right now. And then I finished and I went for a run afterwards because I was like, well, what do I do? I'm done with my
A little bit of
classes.
energy left over.
Exactly. I don't run. I'm not a runner. But I did. That was a completely new experience for me because before that, it was like every finish line was drag yourself across the finish line,
Mm.
gasping for water kind of a feeling. And it wasn't. And it was the best grades I'd gotten in any of my classes. And it almost felt like I was cheating, right? Because usually I was used to using effort as my marker for did I really try hard enough?
Mm.
And this one was like, that was a lousy metric. Turns out that was a terrible way to actually measure my performance. When I let the true performance metrics be my yes or no to did I do well, it was a completely different experience. I walked away energized.
I love that. Effort is a lousy metric. There you go, turning everything on its head.
It really is, though. I mean, it feels good in the moment, but then, like, if you go back and read the paper you submitted at 11th hour, you're like, I missed what?
So most of our listeners are pretty busy and
Hmm.
I suspect rather tired a lot of the time. They might not let it show, but they're probably listening to this going, I don't have time to figure out this even achieving method of Erica's and I don't even, remember all the things. What would you
Of
say that
course.
they should be doing this week?
This week. So I have one question I love to ask have most of my people that are super productive ask themselves. You can do it. It works best in a project context. So something that has a clear end date and a clear start date. So I have some people that ask it daily. I have some that do it monthly, but you schedule it in and you ask this one question. You ask yourself, if I continue at this pace, when I'm done, will I have enough energy left to celebrate?
Well, that's beautiful. That
That
is
is
beautiful.
the best way to build your own awareness around, am I pacing too fast or too slow? Now, if you build that in early enough as a check in and you realize, crap, I'm moving way too fast, you should have enough time to renegotiate your terms. And that's what I like to think of it as, is because when we start a project, we are only thinking about us on our very best days. We're thinking about, I am capable of all of these wonderful, amazing things. And then we build our timelines around us showing up as our best days. And then reality hits, right? And it never actually, we have bad days and it's okay. So I purposely build that check in at least halfway through, if not a little bit earlier, so that I can say, okay, how's my pacing? Will I have enough energy left to celebrate at the end? And if it's no, I go, okay, I'm only halfway. I can now either pull in more skills and resources, get more help from people, or I can go renegotiate the deadline. I have time to do that.
It's a brilliant rule of thumb. If I keep
Isn't
going at
that
the pace
fun?
I'm going now, will I have enough energy to celebrate when this project is complete? It's an easy one to
Yes.
remember and a very wise one. I like that. I have
Thank
5 quick
you.
questions for you.
Let's go.
Um, so one book that you would put in every high performer's hands.
Languishing by Corey Keyes.
Okay. The most overrated piece of productivity advice.
Oh, there's so much that's going through my brain with that one. Just a minute. Probably time blocking on your calendar.
I'm going to have to break the quick question rule here. Why is time blocking the most overrated piece of productivity advice?
It sits in that same thing. I block my time when I believe that have control over my time. And then life hits, and then I not only hurt my trust with myself because I can't maintain that I set up, but also the things don't get done. And so I kind of keep it a little more fluid. I will give myself a big week kind of tasks, and then I make sure the best way to describe it is time blocking ignores my capacity that day. I do not want to ignore my capacity anymore.
What's the smallest change that's made the biggest difference in your own life?
I ask my family regularly, have I been present enough for you?
And what's one
And
sign for somebody that might be closer to burnout than they think?
if the things that you enjoy are, well, actually, here's a better way to do it. If you're fantasizing about someone else coming up with a magical wand that could get you out of your situation, you're burnt out. Like if you're fantasizing about this recruiter popping up suddenly and handing you a dream job somewhere else far away on a beach, you're burnt out.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's if when you think of the most successful person you know, what's one rule that you think that they live by?
I would think of my mom. And honestly, she dealt with burnout on and off. But the rule that she lived by was you never forget your people. And so, which is funny because she's ADHD. So if she doesn't see you regularly, she doesn't forget about you. But she kind of tricked her own brain with that. And she would build in things that would help her remember people. So I have, sorry, it's close to my heart, but I have many like voicemails that I have saved where she saw a billboard and something reminded her of me with that billboard. And I got a phone call that just said, I saw this and it made me think of you. I love you. I hope you're doing well.
Mm,
And I have tried really hard to emulate that where I go, you know what? If I get a generous thought like that that pops in about somebody I care about, I don't want that thought to disappear. I want to be like my mom, Cindy, and send a note right then and there. It says, I remember you and I care about you. Thanks for being in my life.
that is beautiful. Erica, I just want to, I guess, encourage anyone who's listening right now to look up your work and to think about how they can deal with stress differently in a way that will serve them better. So thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me. My website is erikacolemanspeaks.com. I write weekly. You can check out any writing I have. I try to keep it very useful in terms of tips to say, hey, how's your break going this time? Does it feel like a break or is it just you feeling guilty? And we play with things like that. I also have a quiz you can take that is a way to see what's your like default achiever mode. Because when you figure out your default achiever mode, you can be like, oh, where's my gap in that champion level behavior? And I can say, if I pull in more of this, I will be more balanced, period. And you can
Mm,
find that at defaultachievermode.scoreapp.com. And I'll give you the link and you can put it in the show notes.
brilliant. We'll get that in there. That's fantastic. So if you're listening to this and you recognize some of this in yourself or in somebody that you care about, please share this conversation with them. And Erica, thank you so much for coming onto the Joe Show.